Welcome everyone. This is the second episode, or the second time we get together in this PyScript something in the wait of a name for this format. But this is really just a call between friends related to the PyScript project, where we talk about what happened in the last few weeks, what's exciting, what's new, and just as we would do if we were grabbing coffee or doing a happy hour or a beer or an Italian spritz, since we have 3 Italians and 2.5 Italians in the call. But without me saying other gibberish, why don't we, well, welcome everyone, and why don't we do a round of introduction real quick? I would say Valerio and I can be a really short version, but Antonio and Josh, I think it's the first time you're here, so it makes sense. So welcome, and who wants to start?
I can start very quickly, so I get out of my way. I am Valerio. Very nice meeting all of you again. It's the pleasure being here for the second time. Devrel and Anaconda, working on several projects, PyScript included. I call now Josh. Please go ahead.
Cool. Okay, great to be here. My name is Josh. I work at Anaconda on EuroPython, which is a block-based programming tool for learning Python. So very education related. It runs in the browser, so lots of exciting links with PyScript coming up. So that is kind of like my world at the minute: PyScript, EuroPython, educational, those sorts of things. Antonio.
Hello everyone, I am Antonio. I work in the PyScript at Anaconda. I think that now I found finally my place in the team. I will be the one who do the spritz.
Oh, well, that's cool. Please bring over.
Yes. And the last is Fabio, I suppose.
Yes. Hi everyone, Fabio. I work at Anaconda, creator of PyScript, and work with Antonio on the core team around PyScript. And I think that's pretty much it. A couple of things actually. Josh, can you tell us how old are you, and how old were you when you started EduBlocks?
So I'm 19. I started EduBlocks when I was 12, so feels like a very long time ago now. But yeah, I've been in this world for so I started coding when I was 8, only at a very basic level, doing Scratch stuff, but that's kind of like when I got into it. So yeah, I've been doing EduBlocks for about 7 years now, coming up in September.
Wow, mind blowing.
Yeah.
And Antonio, can you tell us how old are you?
Just 1 year older than Josh. Yes.
You need to choose your habits, because I think you're not not living a healthy life if that's the case. You seem a little older.
I'm 41. I'm 41.
No, you didn't need to. I didn't want to force you to say it.
We can cut this out in post-production if you want. Right. Okay, so what we talk about today?
You guys choose.
Okay. Well, certainly something happened last week was EuroPython. The 3 of us, Fabio, unfortunately, you couldn't be with us, but lots of Anacondians were there as well. So it was a very fantastic conference in Prague, and opportunity to listen to many interesting talks. The program was amazing. The weather has been amazing as well. So was a very pleasant conference experience. Opportunity to see lots of friends, listening to very interesting talks as well. And among the many things, we had a PyScript talk. We can probably talk about that later. But also on Tuesday, on the 18th, there was WASM Summit, co-organized by Nicholas Tolody, one of our colleagues in Anaconda and core dev in PyScript, and Roman, our core dev in PyODide. So there was a brilliant opportunity to gather some people around talking about WASM, WebAssembly, and initiatives, different projects tackling the same problem. So that was very interesting. And the three of us, meaning Josh, Antonio, and I, were there. So I would be very, very happy to hear from them what was their impression about the WASM Summit. Anything you want to share from it?
A lot of excitement. That's what I picked up on. You know, we're sort of very much, I think, in terms of like the grander scale, very much at the start of Python in the browser and that story. You know, I think the only WebAssembly summit that has happened before was PyCon US this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is like the second one. I think we had about nearly 30 people there.
Yeah.
Which for a non-conference day was great. And you know, a lot of stakeholders from those who, you know, have had a part in the Python WebAssembly story already, but also a good mixture of people who, you know, just have a passing interest of, I'm a Python developer, everyone has a browser, how do these two things really work together? And I think it was a really good opportunity to kind of, you know, for everyone to meet each other who are interested in this space and, you know, really figure out, you know, where I think we kind of left with a really clear picture of where this thing is going, how we can all work together, which is the most important part. And yeah, it's definitely the start of something special, I think. And it was good to see, not just in the summit, and I'm sure we'll come on to the conference as a whole, just kind of like how much excitement there is around Python in the browser and those initiatives. That was definitely my takeaway from it.
I totally agree. I had the same impression. So sorry, Antonio, go ahead. I didn't want to
I would just say the same. I totally agree. Very good vibes, good feelings. I think that the most important thing was the human aspect. In the sense we managed to stay in the room for some hours with people, and then we will collaborate online. But a very good part was what happened after the summit. We went out for dinner and in this nice beer garden and socialized. And I always think that the social aspect of conferences is the most important part. So
don't. I was hoping you told me the beer wasn't good this time, or
I mean, beer in Prague cannot be good. Cannot be.
I know, just lied to me because I missed it, and I'm so sad I missed it.
All right, it was bad. Yeah.
Yeah, very bad.
Happy now.
The weather was bad. It was
Yeah.
Nice.
The beer garden was not very good. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
All very sad.
That's really exciting to me, honestly. Even just the fact that we had a summit at EuroPython was great, really great. But I feel like, given what you're saying and the vibe at the PyCon summit, I feel like the people in the Python community is looking at it as the great opportunity that it is, you know, WASM as a technology to basically, it's the new containers, right? And allows us to run Python and do so many other things related to education, related to packaging, building, sharing, deploying maps and stuff that was not easy before. So I'm super excited, and I hope we will be able as a community to move fast in that direction, because that technology itself is moving so fast that we need to adapt.
I was just thinking that and probably our viewers and listeners on Spotify will certainly have already knowledge of what PyScript is, of course, and how it works and what WASM is in the end. But I do keep on mentioning this and flattering Antonio very much. Probably I should stop doing that because he did a very fantastic talk at PyCon US. So I was actually going to ask Antonio if you can summarize in one sentence what WASM is for our viewers.
First, don't stop and flatter me. Like I like
I knew it.
I
I
was my
won't, okay.
thought. But how did you say? How was it?
That was amazing. That was really cool. Yes.
I
And there's
didn't- I
one
didn't hear.
sentence.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, I couldn't hear.
It was acceptable talk in the end, but yeah, we can say it's amazing. No, kidding. It was really, really nice. And there was still one sentence that I keep on remembering since the first time I listened to your talk, but I'm actually curious to see whether you repeated that right now when you have to summarize what WASM is.
So the question is, what is WebAssembly in one sentence? I think
Not necessarily one. I can be very short interaction.
The very short summary is that it's a virtual CPU that runs in your browser and allows you to do fast computation, but in a portable way. And that's a very, very short sentence. If you want to expand a bit, the cool part is that it's low level, so it means that it's compatible with all legacy languages like C, C++, so you can easily compile existing code bases to WebAssembly. But since it's low level, it can also be executed in a very, very fast way by the browser. That's how we execute Python in the browser. We take CPython, compile to WebAssembly, and run it. But again, but also it's also portable, so you compile to WebAssembly and you run it literally everywhere, because all the browsers around, including mobile, have WebAssembly support now. So it's fast, it's ubiquitous, and it's sandboxed and safe. So you have the same security guarantees as JavaScript, which means that you can execute arbitrary code downloaded from the internet and be sure that it will not harm your computer. Short enough.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Yes.
Yeah. So getting back to the summit real quick, just because I think I'd love to hear a couple of things there. What was the best part, like the single best part that you liked about it, apart from, in terms of topics or things that technology wise made you think like, wow, that's cool, and what was, and if you had anything that you wish happened or change in format or something that we can learn as a community for the next time we organize one.
I want to start, if you don't mind, just because first off, it was the first I attended ever. I missed the PyCon one because I was traveling and like jumping from one conference to the other, so I couldn't attend that one. But I particularly like the unconference mode of the summit. So there was a sort of a program, and for those of you not familiar with the unconference, it means that essentially, it's totally unprepared, so it's very spontaneous from the audience, and people contribute to the discussion in whatever form they like. This can be like a presentation, like for example I did myself, just like out of the blue blobbing about stuff, or it's like in a very informal way. It's an open discussion where everybody is entitled to say what they like about it. So I particularly like the format, first off, and the second, it was very interesting in terms of topics. We went through many aspects of Python in the browser, not just PyScript. We talked about even all the projects. We talked about Python in the browser at large, as in what is the support of Python, what is the support of WebAssembly from the Python language, what are the current issues with Python in the browser, and how can the community and the Python community can do something about it. In particular, we went all length of talking about packaging and how do we distribute a code into the browser and stuff like that. So there were very, very, very interesting discussions. Fun fact, all the discussion were very lively, and so like the community really engaged with it. if I had to say that we ended up with some conclusions, probably that wasn't the case. But nonetheless, that was very, very useful because at least we discussed about things and we realized that there is some work to do and people are willing to do this work. So from my perspective, that was brilliant.
Nice. Josh or Antonio, do you have anything that pops in mind?
No, I would echo exactly that. I think the format was great, and I think for especially as an early sort of it's not a summit that has happened many times before. I think the unconference format of having presentations but encouraging conversation, throughout them really worked well to kind of, someone had a question that would lead on to discussions that I felt were really important and definitely added to the event. So yeah, echo exactly what Valerio said there.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add, basically. I feel that more than the actual topics, the important part was the social aspect, and I think it was the best part. Personally, I've attended and listened to the presentation, but it's not that I learned things that I didn't know before, but I think it was just great to be able to talk to people and just discuss.
I guess we'll come back to the presentation you gave at the WASM Summit because that was crucial for many other things. So I guess it would be.
No, I didn't mean to diverge directly and keep talking about the summit. Like we can definitely go back to the presentation because that was actually one of the bigger topics that I'd love to talk to. Like it's one of the big.
I had just one question before to Antonio, actually. Since you attended the US version already, also, any comparison in terms of audience, community, takeaways you may draw from the two, like, experience?
Fabio, you want to start?
Well, Fabio wasn't in EuroPython. I was asking you, Antonio. That's why.
Okay, right. Yes. It was a bit different. I think that the audience was different in the sense that in both summits there was like the Anaconda group, the PyScript group, representing more or less the same area of interest. But then at PyCon US, there was Brett Cannon from Microsoft, and he is one of the core developers who is maintaining CPython on WebAssembly. So he had he was the organizer of the summit at PyCon. So he had the agenda and drew the discussion in a certain way. We discussed a lot about, for example, how to make sure that CPython gets support for WebAssembly from the CPython developers and things like this. This kind of conversation didn't happen at EuroPython. At EuroPython, we had many attendees who are just interested in WebAssembly as a topic itself, but without a particular role in the community, or not yet, basically. So I think that it was like this was the biggest difference. So at PyCon US, more people actually involved in doing stuff, and at EuroPython, both people doing stuff and people just curious about it.
Nice. I want to actually spend 30 seconds just to highlight the importance of one thing that you mentioned, Antonio, which is the social aspect of this. And we in the Python community, we focus a lot on the technical side of things and implementation and stuff. And maybe sometimes we don't appreciate this, but the social aspect in programming is sometimes as important as the technical side, because then if you talk and you socialize and you share ideas, etc., you can come up with, converging into what's the best solution or the best compromise for something. Otherwise, if you don't, then things that can happen are 100,000 implementations of the same thing, or or not putting down options in your whatever project or the thing you're doing to change behavior later, et cetera, but or have endless discussions that go nowhere, et cetera. Like the human aspect is so important. And I think one of the things, honestly, that was missing so much during the COVID years was that. So yeah.
I was exactly going, I didn't want to open that can of worms, but I exactly concur and agree 100% with what you said. And this is exactly why I personally believe that online conferences are a sort of like an empty experiment, because it takes out all the human aspect. It just keeps the technical aspect, which is fine. Sometimes is all you need. But if you need to have a better kind of conference experience, and certainly the best experience is not while you're attending / delivering the talk, is more when you talk afterwards. So that's my personal view on the things.
And on this topic, something which is not we should underline and is okay. Let me start again, because I don't know who is the audience of this video and podcast. Hello everyone again. I expect that.
So you want to start? So you begin from the start, everything? Okay, let's talk about it.
I expect that some of the people are just curious, or people maybe beginners at the start of their career. Sure. And maybe this is what I'm going to say is not something which is obvious from the outside, but when you are collaborating with the open source community, you end up doing a lot of discussion online, usually using media which are not very good at expressing emotions. Like you write a comment on GitHub, and it's very, in my experience, it's very, very easy to misinterpret the intention of the other people, not to understand. Maybe you make a small joke, but the other people take it wrongly, or maybe the opposite. And knowing people in person makes everything much easier. Like collaboration online becomes incredibly easier, especially in the context of open source, in which you collaborate with people with other companies outside your with people that maybe you don't have the chance to meet very often. So again, this is like something which makes, I think this kind of summit will make things much easier in the future, basically.
Yeah, agreed. So you should know the audience of this call. Probably, it's the first ones, etc. Probably it's going to be your family, my family, our family watching it.
Mama.
Exactly. But
I would actually love to hear Josh's perspective in this particular topic. He's essentially the youngest in the group, and I'm actually curious. I'm asking Josh genuinely, how much is your experience with conference gigs in general? Have you been going to many conferences lately, or? I know you're going to PyCon UK, by the way, which is huge.
Yeah. So I've been lucky to go to quite a few. So PyCon UK probably 3 or 4 times now. PyCon US I went to in 2018. EuroPython 2018. So I've been to quite a few of them, and wow, I've got so much out of being able to go to these conferences, meet people who are in the same space as me, be able to do talks, sessions in like the education track, just because that's like what my kind of sector is. So yeah, I definitely agree that there's so much that you can gain out of going to a conference in person. And I think especially over the past few years, like we've all just said, I feel that I haven't got as much out of that. Of online conferences, you can listen to the technical details, but you can't really have those like corridor track discussions, which is what PyCon calls them, and I think other conferences have kind of adopted that. Are just you bump into someone in between going to a talk, you start up a conversation with them, and I found that those conversations have been the most valuable for me for just random conversations that you didn't really expect to happen, and you get a lot of value out of that. And yeah, so I would definitely recommend, if you're just getting into the Python space and just want to meet like-minded people, conferences are the way to go. Because that social aspect is equally as important, if not more important, than the technical side of things, I think, especially in the Python world where it's very much a community. That community aspect to it is something special that we have, and I think it's important to continue and grow that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love it. So I didn't. Okay, getting back to now to the topic that you wanted to talk about, Valerio. Antonio, your talk, and well, heard there was a spy in the audience or in the conference. People were asking about it, and so can you explain?
Someone in disguise.
Exactly.
Okay. If you want to talk about the spy in the conference, I want to show something. Let me share my screen.
I hope you're unshare your screen. Put a glass and mustache. There you go. There you go.
There you go.
For those,
this is the temporary logo of Spy. I don't know if it will become the right one. Like the
so for
one.
those in listening to this not on YouTube,
and by the way, I don't know what happened, but we're actually looking at a younger version of yourself. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but
oh my God! Yes.
Oh goodness!
Yes, I love it. So for those not watching, Antonio first showed the glasses and mustache emoji, and then he turned off his camera, and he's back with the costume. I love it.
This was the spy at the conference, yes.
I remember you.
Yeah, you look just like the emoji, by the way.
Exactly.
It's too bad that some people will only listen to the podcast, but yes.
No, yes. They should definitely see the video now.
Do I have your approval to when we release this, or like we announced this episode on Twitter, can I put the picture, the screenshot of your costume as an episode?
You must actually.
I must, yes. This is so good. Love it. We actually should buy those and give it for free at conferences. It would be so cool. Anyway, sorry. So now that you're
now that I have your interest. So Spy is a project which I presented for the first time in public at the WebAssembly Summit. The logo of the with the mask is basically this guy is Python. Spy stands for static Python, and it's an implementation of a compiler which aims to translate Python to WebAssembly directly. So we said earlier that to run a normal Python on WebAssembly, you take CPython, compile it, and then use this interpreter to run your Python code, exactly as it happens on desktops. But for technical reason, this is suboptimal, and there are things that they're much better done if you can compile directly to WebAssembly. So you want to compile, not an interpreter. But at the same time, Python as a language is not very easy to compile because it's too dynamic, and people have been trying for many years, and it's just not doable in a good way. So Spy aims to become you can either think of it as a different language which is Python-like, very similar to Python, or a subset of Python which has static types. I don't know, but that's the core of the point. You take your Python program, you add types, it's statically typed, the types are checked at compile time. Some of the most dynamic feature of Python will not be allowed, but I'm designing the language in such a way that the useful stuff, the good stuff, will be still there, so that for most people it will feel like Python, and you will be able to compile to WebAssembly and execute it at much faster speed than Python. That's the very short summary. But it's very early. Like I started 1 month ago, 2 months ago, I don't remember. So currently you can compile Fibonacci, yes. That's what you can do.
One thing super interesting about it actually is that it's so direct, it's low level and designed to also be able to use more the features that WASM provides, right? Like, which is difficult with for instance Biodide, because there are other layers on top of it that abstract things, so you cannot really directly access WASM so easily, is right? Can you talk a little about it?
Yes, so WebAssembly is basically a technology built in layers. So there is the WebAssembly core, which is the specification which came out some years ago, and it's what I described before. It's a virtual machine, low-level virtual machine in which you can compile your code to, and it's fast to execute. And at this level, the virtual machine speaks only about numbers. So you can have functions, and you can import and export functions. So for example, you can take a WebAssembly module and call a function defining the module. Or if the function imports a module from the outside, you can give it a function written, for example, in JavaScript, and pass it to the WebAssembly world. But at the boundary, you can only pass integers and floats. And then you have to invent many ways of serializing stuff to well, to pass higher level types, for example, strings or objects or things like this. This is what's called a WebAssembly core. But what's happening in the WebAssembly world is that both the virtual machine and the ecosystem are getting more and more capabilities, and on top of the core, we are getting features added to WebAssembly which are higher level. And I think that we are going in the direction of multi-language interoperability. I think that something which will happen in the future is that you will be able to write what they are called WebAssembly components in one language and consume the component from another language in a very, very transparent way. I can imagine writing a component in Rust and consume it from C++ or from AssemblyScript or from Python or Spy. And from this point of view, a compiled language is a much better position than interpreted one for getting.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat what you said? Because this is another thing that I'm glad that it's being recorded, because it's a topic that you and I have so many arguments about. Actually, this is a background story that it's worth saying to everyone. Like Antonio and I have this history of having so many heated discussions, or kind arguments around technology and things like this, and this is one of them. And you are the one that have been running around in Zoom calls with the bell, like New York style, the doomsday is coming, etc.
Shame.
And this, you're like, this is never gonna happen, this is never gonna work, never gonna work. So what changed? Or do you agree with me, actually, that it can work?
Okay, for people who are a bit lost, we are talking about the multi-language interoperability, I think.
Exactly,
right?
Yes.
And I still defend both my positions. I think that we are going that direction, and WebAssembly is adding features that will allow multi-language interoperability as long as you use the features which are exposed by the virtual machine. And if you want to compose two languages which are not designed to work together, then it's a very, very hard topic. And everybody who tried to build a bridge between two different environments and languages knows what are the difficult parts. Because sometimes you have concepts. Sometimes there are concepts which maps very, very easily from one language to the other. Attributes, like most languages nowadays has the notion of fields and objects. So this is kind of you have syntax in language A, and you can map to the concept which is language B. But there are other cases in which the concept is not this, it doesn't exist, or exists in a very subtle different way, and it's very, very hard. I imagine iterators. Iterators works more or less in all languages, but maybe Python and JavaScript has a slightly different notion of what happens at the end of the loop. And then if you try to iterate on a JavaScript collection from Python, you get maybe unexpected behavior. Async it's a big topic. Like we discussed this like always. Like the Python notion of async is different than the JavaScript notion of async. And depending on the point of view, you have different behavior and unexpected behavior. So this is still very, very hard to do interoperability in two different languages. So doing it at the language from the language point of view on 3 or more becomes exponentially more complex. So
yes, and I'm mostly joking when I say this, because as usual we always end up saying, well, we agree. It's just the point of view where we're looking at that is different, right? Like multi-languages interrupt can happen at many levels, and you can mean many things. So I think, as you said, transparent 100% interrupt between languages. I agree with you. It's probably never going to happen. But with some level of compromises, or whatever it is, I think can happen. We just need to understand how much. Anyway.
But to put this more in context and to explain better what I mean, you can think about strings. Currently, if you want to pass a string from the outside into WebAssembly, you don't have a good way. Every technology invents its own way of encoding the string and pass it to WebAssembly. So, for example, I can allocate some buffer in the linear memory of the WebAssembly module and write the character then, and then you pass a number which represents the pointer, and maybe the string can be UTF-8 or zero-ended, null terminated, or maybe it's a different encoding, and all this information are, well, hard-coded mostly, and they are per project. With a WebAssembly component model, we're going towards a technology in which the concept of string is standardized. So every language that passes a string around knows exactly what it means at the binary level, so that we just have a way to interrupt. That in this sense, it becomes easier to do multi-language interoperability.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, just came to mind. Like we should probably have I don't know if an episode of this, but maybe another thing, a call where we actually hop on a call with other people interested in this in the community, and talk about it, because I think it would be a really fascinating topic, and maybe some ideas can come up. Actually, the other thing that is related as well is that Python in the browser is, which I don't want to open a new topic, right? But just mentioning another interesting one for another discussion is, what is Python in the browser and what things changes, right? Like the concepts of the things we have, file system, threads, multiprocessing, all of those are really interesting to talk about. But for another time.
I guess it's very interesting, and it certainly deserves an episode by itself, because things are changing from both perspectives, either what changes from the Python perspective and what changes from like the browser perspective. So it's very interesting topic indeed. Well, I would like to conclude, also in the interest of time, on the SPY topic, just saying that we've had some very quick demo from Ted. I can say, well, we said and we repeated, SPY at the moment is very early stage, so there's very few things that you can do. But he tested and compiled the Fibonacci program in WASM and run it in browser, and it was actually faster than JavaScript. That was indeed amazing. So this has the potential of really keeping the promise of WASM, which is, by the way, having near native performance when you run things in the browser. So this is very interesting direction. this project.
And now I feel a bit of pressure. Yes, thank you.
Yes, exactly. This is exactly my intention. Good.
Don't even start saying, well, but I only implemented 5% of the language and
He's
stuff.
always has excuses anyway, so yeah.
Incredible. It's
He
incredible.
he always has a way out. So I don't know how he does that, but yeah. Yeah.
Well, also for in the interest of time, I want to make sure that I ask this or highlight this because we have Josh in the call, and I really want to ask about EduBlocks and
yes,
PyScript, and what do you think? I know you've been playing with it, right? And I'm super excited because I think actually both those projects have education and enabling the 99%, like Peter put in his keynote. And so at their core mission, right? Like, so I'm so excited that you've been looking at it. Can you talk more about it, Josh?
Sure. So EduBlocks currently, if you execute Python code, is sending it to essentially a third-party service, which is using something called Sculpt, which is a very early effort many years ago to run Python in quotes in the browser. I say that because it's really compiling it to JavaScript, well, translating it to JavaScript rather. So that kind of brings challenges of, you only have a very certain, a very small set of libraries that you can use. So, if you wanted to do more complicated things, or had you'd written a Python library yourself, you'd have to like manually write it in JavaScript and kind of like wrap Python APIs around it, and it just got a bit weird. So PyScript really makes a lot of sense from an educational perspective, especially engagement is a huge issue kind of like in education when learning Python. So the ability to easily interact with HTML elements is kind of a game changer, really. So it kind of just really makes sense to integrate something like this into EduBlocks, which is an educational platform for teaching kids Python like very early on. So that's what I'm working on now. So essentially, kind of, what will happen is we'll switch out the current Python execution service for PyScript, and then start introducing more the PyScript specific things, like the HTML elements, being interact with them, being able to add more libraries, things like that. So there's a really exciting roadmap there, and that's going to, I think, unlock a lot of opportunities on the EduBlock side, but also kind of hopefully bring improvements to the PyScript side as well in that educational setting. So yeah, lots of exciting work going on there, being able to essentially very much like PyScript.com generate PyScript apps, but in a block coding format. So hopefully very soon I will have more to say once I do some more development, and we can kind of do a demo and stuff. And yeah, but yeah, it's a really cool set of possibilities that are coming up. And excited to see what people do with it, really.
Nice.
Amazing. This is really cool.
Yeah, and we'll definitely need to have you in the call again, and when we roll this out, maybe have like a full episode just on it. Actually, one of the things that, as you were saying, that reminded me that I'm super excited about the possibilities as well for also education in EduBlocks is that with the new release, us having almost transparent FFI or Python to JavaScript or vice versa interface also in workers, which is a feature that it's not available even for JavaScript, right? It's so game changing to me, because that enables people to think the same way, either if they're working, if their code is executing anywhere, a main thread or worker, etc., and without changing code or things like this, which for education, I think those edge cases are always the hardest part. You expect things to work and then they don't work, and you're like, I spent another day triaging. So that's super exciting. Yeah, thank you for the work you've done. Like it's incredible. EduBlocks is so cool. Everyone,
it's fun to work on.
Go check it out. Actually, did you? I don't know. Did you mention the website?
No, edublocks.org, you'll find out more kind of about it on there and have a link to the editor itself. It's super simple to create a project and start playing around with it. So, and also any feedback is very much welcome as well. And that's kind of like how we build the roadmap of new features, kind of based on what people want.
Nice. And just like PyScript, or just like the sun in the summer, it's free. So go look at it. Except in Berlin.
In Berlin, yes. Maybe it's free, but I don't know where is it.
It's over the clouds. Yeah.
We have enough sun for you all here in Texas. If you know, we can split.
That would be fantastic. Yes, I think for the three of us here, we're certainly lacking a bit of sun. So Josh and I were both in the UK. Antonia's in Germany, but apparently the situation doesn't change. It's still very cloudy and doesn't feel summer at all. So yeah, at least in my standards. Anyway.
All right. I'm looking at the time, and you know, in the interest of keeping those calls a little short, I will try to be the teacher in the room, as Nicholas, our colleague Nicholas always say we should be wrapping up. Anyone, do you all have any closing notes or anything you want to say?
Well, I'm going to say EuroPython is really cool. So please go and check it out because it's amazing.
Thank you.
Yes.
About to get a lot better as well.
Exactly. So even better.
Yeah. I'll add also that Spy is also super cool. The logo is super cool. So you all should buy a Spy mask first, and then try it out.
So far, it's all you have. Only the logo. Everything else is just like, I'm working on it. This is exactly what.
This is the business strategy. Like we will make money by selling masks.
Nice. Well, it's a free product. It's a project. It's an open source project. So we need donations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Merchandise is the way to go. Yes.
Yes. Actually, we should start a TikTok trend where people post their videos coding with that mask. I should change my, don't agree with this, Antonio, but I'm thinking I should change my job and go marketing. So many good ideas. Don't say anything, please. Thank you.
I'm thinking, but I'm not saying. Yes.
All right. Anyone else before we close? Otherwise, I would say it was a great pleasure to have you all here. I hope everyone will enjoy listening, and yeah, see you in a few weeks, a few days. We don't know.
Fun. Yeah.
But I hope you enjoy. Ciao, everyone.
Ciao.